Welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock, and today I'm joined by Nadine Bloxsome. Nadine is the Chief Executive Officer of ALFED and an editor of the Aluminium International Magazine. Alongside her other ALFED colleagues and member companies, Nadine is responsible for advancing the interests of the UK aluminium industry and driving initiatives that promote economic prosperity, environmental stewardship and technological innovations. She's been presented with a unique opportunity to lead and shape the future of a critical sector within the UK economy, and she has a keen interest in influencing policies and fostering collaboration to ensure long-term sustainability and success. Also in 2018, she launched the annual Future Aluminium Forum, which is an international conference and exhibition to assist aluminium manufacturers in the adoption of digital and automation techniques. The forum returned to Istanbul in May 2024 with a focus on how digital manufacturing is assisting with demand growth and sustainable solutions. So thank you and welcome. That was a really long introduction, wasn't it?
It makes you realise how much you've sort of done more recently. So yeah, it's quite good to be reminded.
I was sitting there, I should just go aluminium. I think if we cut you, you bleed aluminium.
Yeah, I think. Well, hopefully it'll come out slightly nicer than a steel or something. But, yeah.
Because, I mean, you are sort of aluminium in pretty much everything you do now. But you started your career as an editorial assistant for a publication that had an emphasis on medical research, and then you moved into sort of industrial publications. So, firstly, why did you start out at a medical research publication, and how did you make the shift into sort of the industrial arena?
Yeah, it's all a bit of a strange mix, really. But yeah, I mean, my initial interest and where I first started, kind of fresh before university, I loved anything to do with journalism. I loved anything to do with finding stuff out. I was the voluntary editor for my very little local kind of village gazette. I think since I was about 14, they let me take it over because they could see I was really keen to do something. So I would sit in these random like residents association meetings where they were all discussing things like their bins and collections and everything, and I had to try and make something really exciting out of it. So I loved just finding out what was going on kind of locally. I just always really enjoyed that kind of element of just inquisitiveness and where things came from, how things all connected. And it was funny. I was actually speaking to someone about this the other day, just to say, like, if I then told my 16-year-old me that I would then go from little local gazette editor and then into some other sort of publications that I dabbled in the past to build this career in the aluminium sector, and then had head up a UK trade body. I wouldn't have even known what a trade body really was at that point. And represent everything from production to processing the aluminium. I'd have probably just thought, well, why aluminium? What's aluminium really got to do with anything? But yeah, as soon as I kind of started, I fell into, from my journalistic world, I started in medical research. I actually worked on some publications that were all to do with ballistic medicine, which was really interesting and very, very different now, but brought a health and safety element into what I do as well, so I could see how that worked out. But kind of fell into the glass sector and started off working there on the sister B2B publication for Aluminium International today, and just had my eyes open to this whole world of manufacturing that I was just captivated, and was lucky enough to develop my career quite quickly within the B2B kind of industry and publishing, and got offered the opportunity to take on the role of editor for AIT. So I jumped at it because I just thought it means I get to see a whole new kind of another side of manufacturing. I'd seen the glass side and I loved it, and thought, okay, what's aluminium got to offer as well? And straight away I just felt really in tune with that industry. And I think it was obviously about 10 years ago now when I took over the magazine, and it just seemed like it was kind of on the cusp of this breakthrough of like a clean green material of the future, and that our world would be built on, and it seems like now that it was just the start of this kind of journey with it all, and I'm lucky enough to have been able to join that conversation, to hopefully have created some of the narrative, I think, as well, around obviously the benefits of aluminium and its kind of wider contribution to the circular economy. So yeah, it's just always felt like there's something going on in the sector, and I've really grown my contacts over the years, and I've really come to find and make some great friends and acquaintances who I can kind of rely on to keep me up to date with any information. And yeah, who've also sort of helped me to develop and let me constantly ask questions, from that sort of 14-year-old editor of our local gazette.
I love the way that when you're talking about aluminium, you always, whenever I talk to you about it, you always focus on the sustainability and how it's becoming cleaner and greener. And obviously, the start of any metal is not that clean and green, but aluminium is inherently recyclable. And I don't know the exact percentage, you might probably, but it's a massive number of aluminium that's been produced forever is sort of still in circulation nowadays.
Yeah. I think it's something like over 75%.
It's a huge
aluminium
amount
ever produced. Yeah.
And when we're trying to look at how we can be more sustainable as manufacturers, particularly within the metals industry, it's something that the wider populace who aren't in our field, they don't think about metals. They don't think about how they can be sustainable. We're just sort of, it's like you say, no one ever talks about it. And everything we use in our lives has metal in, whether it's aluminium, stainless steel, a carbon steel, or a yellow metal like a brass or a copper. Everything we touch every single day is reliant on metals. And I think as sectors, we really need to push more about how important we are to the economy, which of course is something that you bang the drum a lot with, both at ALFED in particular, particularly when you're sort of trying to influence policy with government, but also with your other hat on, AIT.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that, because now I do get to see kind of both sides of that coin, really. And I think from a manufacturer's perspective, obviously there's so much more coming in now that needs to be contended with regards to legislation and everything that is either falling under certain standards or accreditations and things now. So there's a lot to try and take in, and there's also a lot of myths to try and bust around obviously greenwashing of aluminium and what the actual sustainability of a product is still so hard to determine. So I think we're working really closely with a lot of ALFED members to try and assess what that looks like, just not just for them and their business, but what it looks like for the future going forward, and where they're going to be needing to focus and kind of have these plans in place, because a lot of reporting and standards and everything like that is going to come in, and it's going to come in kind of hard and fast when it does. And I think also something that we've talked about a lot more at ALFED more recently is highlighting more to the consumers and the end users and people who regularly deal with aluminium in their daily life, but like you say, don't really see how it fits in. And it's, I think, from a consumer's perspective, and with hopefully new government and looking at ways we can really kind of promote aluminium as this part of our sustainable future. It's showing not only what we use it for and what we need it for, and letting even sort of younger generations see it as a real key point to their daily lives. They need it to be able to turn on their laptop, to be able to look at their phones, get in the cars, be driven to school, whatever it is, on the buses. So it's building out those two kind of areas of how we can support the members, how we can support the industry, and what that looks like from the kind of sustainability roadmap perspective, but also what aluminium can really bring to a sustainable economy, and how we kind of champion that narrative and make it clear, not just to government, that it's an industry that requires investment and requires a lot of hard work to ensure that we kind of keep it at a level and build into it, but also the part that aluminium plays in everyone's daily life, and it's important there.
So in your role of ALFED, you're doing a lot of juggling, and obviously you're a consummate juggler because you've got your role at AIT as well, and the Future Aluminium Forum, and you've been instrumental working with Yasmin and myself regarding the Women with Metal of the Aluminium Awards later this year, Aluminium 2024 in Dusseldorf.
So aluminiums, isn't it?
I'm just going to sit here and repeat aluminium. It's just easier. I'll just copy and paste. But how do you work? How do you multitask? Do you complete things in little boxes individually? How do you work? What works best for you?
Yeah, it's funny. I think I've always been one to have like a to-do list on the go. Like my desk just becomes to-do list, and then I even have like a breakout list of my to-do list just because I want to be able to cross stuff off of it, and maybe I've not put it in order, so I think, right, no, I need to do that again. But yeah, I thrive best when I am spinning plates, and I love there constantly being something on the go. And actually I was reading into this when I saw your kind of questions, and apparently it's very strong Gemini characteristic to like keep all these options open and have lots of opportunities on the go and always remain curious. So I was reading that thinking, okay, yeah, that actually, I'm not normally one for star signs and everything, but I was like, okay, that's quite scary how accurate that is. So yeah, I am a prolific multitasker. I'll be across a few things at one time, but I like to be able to be dipping in and out of stuff. And I have probably become a bit better more recently at saying no to things and realizing when I might be taking on too much, which I think is something that comes a bit more with age perhaps, and sort of confidence when you know you're working in a certain way. So you sort of think, I know my limits. But yeah, also knowing where you can really like commit yourself and your efforts to, and making sure that you're giving as much of it as possible. And it makes it easier when you're involved in projects that you're passionate about, like obviously the Women with Metal Awards, for example, and everything around that. I just think there's just so many good initiatives and so many good things coming out at the moment that I'd love to be a part of and try and engage my network with and build my network as well. So yeah, I do like to bounce around different things, and probably should still get a bit better at like shutting out some of the noise sometimes, and my binging inbox can be a bit of a distraction. But I think my Gemini curiosity probably plays in there, because I think what am I missing?
Well, as a fellow Gemini,
funny that
I'm not surprised to hear that at all. I love a to-do list. I went through a stage, and I still do. I sort of have a notebook that I cross things off on for certain projects, and then it goes in my calendar, and I colour code my calendar.
I think I've probably learned some nice task setting up off of you. And
yeah, colour coding it is brilliant, because you've got the little colour things, and it's just like dark blue is finance, yellow is project work, and you can just label them. So when you glance at it, you can sort of see the makeup. So
that's quite a good idea.
So
it's just not. I think also having things written down. If I write something down myself, my calendar. I never wanted to be one of these people that always had my calendar on my phone. I always had a proper diary, and I'd love to write in my diary. And I've gone back to that a little bit now, just because I quite like to sort of separate out personal stuff within a diary to work stuff on the phone. But I think actually physically writing things out really does help me to kind of compartmentalize like where I should be focusing and what that looks like. And then it's a nice achievement tick at the end.
Plus, there's nothing like a really nice notebook or diary, is there?
I get a lot of notebooks. I feel like any event I go to, I'm given a notebook. So I've actually been told by my husband to stop bringing them home now, so we've got a notebook drawer.
Yeah, I've always got 2 or 3 on the go. I'm looking at my desk. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on my desk at work, and they're sort of all different projecty things.
Yeah,
but it can't beat a good bit of
love a good bit of stationery.
You mentioned briefly earlier about the new government, and we're recording this in July, and we've literally just had a change of government just over a week. So without being sort of too political, what do you see from ALFED members as a priority for the aluminium landscape moving forward with the government?
Yeah, obviously there's been a lot of change recently. Hoping that a lot of it can be positive, and hopefully this will be the case with the new government, and just being able to set about bringing some sort of political stability, which is what we've needed, just so that businesses and our sector can actually start to form some long-term plans. Obviously, this hasn't been the case really in recent years, so I think that's a huge priority for the government to just make it feel like there is now this stability. Obviously, looking at delivering an industrial strategy. I know
there's been rumours.
Yeah, and hopefully, I think, again, time of recording, I think we'll all be waiting for the King's speech, just to see. I think there's been mention of it in there. So ALFED have set out, and obviously, like a lot of other trade associations and everyone, we've set out our manifesto in advance of the election, and one of the key priorities was that it did call on the new government to deliver this industrial strategy, and I think mainly just look at establishing a level playing field for the aluminium industry. So I've got sort of meetings lined up this week, actually getting back into the Department of Business and Trade now. Hopefully that's everyone's settled down and found new desks or whatever they needed to do. And we're just really keen to work with the key stakeholders, policymakers going forward to continue to, obviously, like I mentioned, promote the benefits of aluminium, but highlight the areas where we really need to also invest in our workforce and, train up new generation of engineers, and how that all fits into this kind of idea of a long-term industrial strategy.
And I think the two key things from what you've said there is long-term and stability. And we've sort of, over the last 8 years, lurched from one crisis to another. Everything from Brexit to a variety of ministers in different roles, including the Prime Minister, to the energy crisis, to Suez Canal. Someone couldn't quite manage a U-turn, and it just sort of seems that we've been, particularly in manufacturing and engineering, you wake up and get hit with another stick, and you wake up and you get hit with another stick. And I think it doesn't matter which political party it is now, it's the hope of the stability that it is cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of the plans that have already been set in motion hopefully do give a good indication that there will be kind of follow through on a lot of things. And I think it's just really key from as a trade association and other trade associations as well, representing other metal sectors, just to get ourselves in front of this government, because a lot was kind of tried previously, and I think it's more a case of just really highlighting the importance of manufacturing in general as well, and where our sectors fall into that. But I think there's a lot to be done, but I think this is probably the best time, and it feels actually like the most kind of collaborative time for associations as well. So I think for me, coming into this role now, that is one of my main aims, is to tie up with other associations, to see where we can all be kind of singing from that same hymn sheet, because it's better to go in stronger together, I think.
I think the sort of multiple crises over the last few years has really shown, obviously I can only talk from the manufacturing industrial metal sector because that's where I live, but it's really shown when there isn't leadership, when there is no industrial strategy, when we're being ignored, and I know that's quite blunt, but we were, that we collaborate with each other, and it's just a case of, well, we'll just get on with it. We'll do this, we'll do that. And a lot of the metal trade associations have really taken the lead in that. You recently held a sustainability day. We've got CBAM coming forward. There's been all sorts of initiatives that ALFED, the BSA, and other metal trade bodies are available. But you've really sort of stepped up the way you engage with each other on the UK Metals Council, but also with the members, and that's been really, really good to see. And I've just mentioned the Sustainability Day that ALFED held earlier this year. Did you see a lot of collaboration there amongst the members? Obviously, being as impartial as they can be. But was that one of the key takeaways from the day?
Yeah, definitely. I think so it's an event that's kind of evolved even in just its very quick 2 years, really. I launched it last year, mainly just to get an understanding of where we are as a sector at that time, where we were as a sector at that time, and what kind of areas people were already focusing on from their sustainability goals and their own roadmaps and everything. And then, yeah, one thing that was kind of remarkably different and we saw this year was that we invited a number of ALFED members to actually present on their efforts and their projects and see where they have what has been the focus of their sustainability and net zero plans at the moment. And it was just really useful rather than, well, actually it worked quite well because we, at the time, we weren't then able to have any government officials or anybody involved because it was pre-election. So we sort of switched it from what we did last year when we did have a lot of that and a lot of kind of being spoken at. And this year we thought, well, no, let's bring the members together, let's see what's already being implemented and show off some projects and everything that to see what that looks like. And it was it was just really good to see that there is still sort of a long way to go to tie in a lot of this together, like across the supply chain. So it just sort of gave us lots of food for thought on where we could start, where ALFED can start to help kind of tie some of these bits together, but also just really good to see the efforts already being made by a lot of members. And it was one of the first events actually I've ever experienced. We had one question from the audience that at the time they were asking, I think we had CRU presenting a big market update, which was brilliant. They'd just sort of finished, and one of the questions from the audience was, would the UK grid be able to cope if there was like a new heavy emitter, and what would that look like? And at that exact second, all the lights went out and the whole building just lost power, which was obviously slightly ironic. But yeah, it just turned out there'd been thankfully a localized power cut, so we kind of quickly cut to a break while all the generators kicked in and prayed that we didn't have to move the buffet lunch into the car park and have a barbecue or something. But it was just, even that was quite interesting because everyone was then able to go off and have, and this sort of, I would say sparked, which is not, no pun intended, but did spark some really good discussions because it kind of threw us into limbo a bit. And sort of jokingly, what do we do if there are things like this and we do have to overcome certain power crises? So made for an exciting event anyway.
Actually, it's one of those, isn't it? If you'd written that in a sitcom, nobody would have believed it would ever happen.
No. Oh dear.
So we've got a few things coming up. We've got the UK Metals Expo in September at the NEC in Birmingham, which will be the third year. And obviously ALFED's been a huge supporter of that, and a lot of your members are heavily involved. With it being the third year, are you looking to achieve anything different for ALFED this year?
Yes, it's coming around really quickly, isn't it? I think this year, because it has evolved, it's developed. I think now we've got something like more than 15 of our members are exhibiting, which will be really good. Obviously, we use it as a great kind of platform to be able to just meet directly with our members and catch up and host them at the booth and be able to spend some time. But I think, it'll be a mix of being involved across some of the panel discussions as well. I know I've got one lined up that I'm actually hoping to announce. Part of ALFED are basically involved in something called the Back British Metals initiative, which will hopefully more details will be announced soon. But that's where we'll be kind of focusing quite a lot of our discussions around. And we're also looking at hosting a Meet the Expert kind of session on our booth at some point as well, just because, again, there's so many of these, as we touched on, points that we need to offer member support with. So anything around CBAM, energy procurement, just any sort of nuances within your business that we can be helping with. So we'll be looking to do something around that. And just main idea to engage with members, offer them a chance to not only meet with us, but meet with other industry experts. And hopefully bring some sort of value from our side to the show as well, because it is always a mad couple of days, so it's always quite hard to sort of squeeze as much in, and you want to get around all the sessions and everything. But I think it'd be good to really see members there and be able to kind of offer some little focus points for discussions as well.
Oh, I'm really, really looking forward to it, and it's always good to see the panel discussions. And then following on from the UK Metals Expo, we've got Aluminium 2024 in Dusseldorf in October.
Yes.
Then we've got Women with Metal at the ICC in Birmingham at the end of October. Then it's the ALFED dinner in November with your apprenticeship awards,
Yes.
which just sound really exciting and look like a fantastic initiative. So well done on those. I just think it's great because the apprentice gets a cash prize, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yeah, this is something. So Michael Horan, who is on our board and also CEO at Sherwood Stainless and Aluminium, he'd launched it before in the steel industry, and it was really successful. Now, obviously, he's kind of switched his allegiance as well and come over to aluminium slightly.
Come over to the light side.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we just did see this. There's a lot that ALFED wants to be doing with apprentices, and not even just apprentices, but even more of a focus on kind of new starters within roles and where there are opportunities for people maybe even to sidestep into different positions within a company and just kind of upskilling and things. So we thought the apprentice was a great way to kick that off. Obviously, we're lucky enough to have our dinner at the end of the year anyway, and we always looking for something a bit different. So we thought this year we're better to try and make it a bit glitz and glam and get the apprentices there, get them to bring, a partner or parent or whoever they want to also bring along to show off, and then get to meet with the industry and see what goes on as well. So yeah, I think first prize is £1,000, which is pretty good, and then the 4 runners up also can, I say runners up, the other highly commended, will receive a cash prize of, I think it's like £250, and then just hopefully a really great way for also their companies to be able to sit down with them in the nomination process. And similarly, like with the Women with Metals Awards, it's just building some of that recognition and having those conversations with either your peers, your colleagues, whoever, if they're nominating you or if they suggest you should be nominated. It's just kind of getting those conversations had and building some confidence in these kind of areas of their career as well. So really looking forward to it, to round everything off at the end of the year, hopefully.
It's like you said at the beginning when I did your introduction, when it's summarised in something like an introduction on a podcast or in a nomination application form, it's quite nice to look and go, oh, actually, I have achieved all those things. I have come that far because, we you're in the weeds day to day, and actually stopping and taking a step back and looking and giving yourself a pat on the back. Well, we're British, we don't do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly, yeah.
Finally, Nadine, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, I just really have to, when you shared this with me, I just really have to think about this. And it's such a good question, because I don't know if it counts as advice, but my wise and wonderful, well, I can't say wise, she'll probably kill me because she means old, but my wonderful mum often likes to remind me that what's meant for you won't pass you by. And so I've sort of applied this to lots of things in my life more recently, and tried to focus on only the things you can really control as well. And I think this has helped in certain situations where I've felt the pressure, but also it's completely out of your control. You can only deal with what you can. So I'd say it's probably more of a mantra, a nice mantra to have than advice. But it's definitely always there in the back of my mind.
I like that. I've got something slightly similar, which is it'll all be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
And it is one of those things. And I think you're right as well to focus on what you can control, rather than stressing over something and worrying over something you have no control over, like the multiple crises we mentioned earlier. We can't, we can't get that ship to, turn around properly in the Suez Canal. Yes, it will have an impact, but I can't do anything about it. So there's no point worrying about it.
No, I've had to get an awful lot better at those kind of things. I've always been a massive worrier, even to the point that I remember as a kid, I think my mum again gave me a little set of worry dolls. I don't even know if these are still a thing, but I was supposed to tell them my worries, put them under my pillow at night, and they'd all disappear. But I think things like that I'd always really been sort of so focused on, and the control of things I had to have a big part in. But now I think, especially like I say, having a having a broader outlook on things, and now being in a role and in a position where I can really see and have a strong focus and have a real kind of passion and excitement for, I'm just really geared towards that, thinking about whatever I can do within that, hopefully it'll be a good thing and everything else will fall into place.
Well, I'm so excited just to see how your role develops. I really am, and what you achieve. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And I will next see you in real life at the UK Metals Expo. I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be brilliant. Yeah, I can't wait. I think that's just another real huge tick for this year to show what we've done, and yeah, something else to add to our intro list.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Nadine.
Thank you, Kirsty.